Shout out to Caressa McKnight for sending me this story. Now, you're seeing right here, this is Bethune-Cookman University, and it is probably one of the few, and I do mean few, HBCUs that was actually founded by a black person. Many of these HBCUs were not founded by black people, but they were founded so black people can go to the schools that were separate from PWI so they can further their education. But the reason why I'm doing this story is because there is a white student that goes here and he made a comment. It wasn't a racist comment, but it was more of an observation. He said that he thought that there would be more black people at this school or more black people here, considering that it is an HBCU. And that's something he just recognized with his own surroundings. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article. It says not only are white people moving into black neighborhoods, apparently they're moving into historically black colleges and universities, also known as HBCUs. One white student at Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida, was shocked he didn't see more black students. The New York Times reports Clarence Carter III. Now, wait a minute. This, this is a white student whose name is Clarence Carter III. Now, if you didn't tell me he was white, I would assume right off the bat, just off of that name, that he was black and not white. Plays baseball for Bethune-Cookman University and said, "It did catch me by surprise, I'm not going to lie. I would have thought coming to an HBCU there would be more black people, but things aren't always what you expect." This is under the context of baseball, but Carter's thoughts are what many are thinking all throughout HBCUs. According to the New York Times, Bethune-Cookman's baseball team only has 4 African Americans and the school is 79% African American. That means that the other 21% is like a mixture of other people such as white, Hispanic, Asian, what have you. Lynn Thompson, the athletic director at Bethune-Cookman since 1990, said, "We just happen to be historically black. We're not exclusively black. Our job is to tell the great story of Bethune-Cookman through the lives of these great kids who wear our uniforms, wherever they come from and whatever they look like." That said, HBCUs in general have seen a shift in racial makeup of students. According to an August report from Diverse Issues in Higher Education, in many cases, African American students have ceased being a majority at HBCUs. At some, they are a small minority among a white majority. Now, that's interesting. I wish they could pull up a list of the schools that fall into that category. The report also stated graduate, professional, and online programs at HBCUs tend to draw non-black students at higher rates. And see, you know what it is? A lot of these students who may be going to maybe trying to go on an athletic scholarship and they're trying to get drafted, whether into the NFL or the NBA, they know that they can't get drafted out of an HBCU. I don't know anybody who went to an HBCU who got drafted to professional league, no matter what the sport was, out of an HBCU. Usually they would have to go to a D1 school, which is usually a PWI. And also a lot of you find a lot of like black students go to these PWIs, the Ivy League schools, because they feel that if it looks good on the resume, let's put it that way, it'll give them a better opportunity to get a decent job or a good career opportunity after they graduate. The percentage of white students at HBCU stood at 17%, according to a report last year from Pew Research Center. That figure was up from 13% in 1980. Data provided by the National Center for Education Statistics confirmed the steady rise in white students enrolling in HBCUs from 1976 through 2004. That could be the reason, at least in part, why HBCUs saw record growth in 2017. However, coinciding with the rise in white students at HBCUs was the lower shares of black students attending these institutions. As desegregation, rising incomes and increased access to financial aid resulted in more college options for blacks. The share of blacks attending HBCUs began to shrink, Pew found. Now, pay attention to that. As desegregation, rising incomes, and increased access to financial aid resulted in more college options for blacks, basically meaning giving them access to white schools or white institutions, they basically decided to abandon HBCUs. That's why I always said that, that's why I kept saying integration was one of the worst things that could have happened to black people. By fall of 1980, 17% of black students enrolled in degree granting institutions were enrolled at an HBCU. By 2000, that share had declined to 13% and it stood at 9% in 2015. How unfortunate that some white students are seeing more value in HBCUs in our communities. You know what? I can't even be upset like that. Like that's what's happening when I went to college, because I went to an HBCU back in 2007 and graduated in 2011. It was, of course, mainly black people that was there, but then towards like the end of my college career, that's when I started to see an influx of white people there. And it wasn't even just white people from within the establishment itself. You had white people that were coming from overseas. I remember when I was in school, we had a white person who was from Turkey, came all the way from Turkey and came to the school that I went to. And he was on an athletic scholarship. I forgot what sport that he played though. And it was a few other Caucasians that were there at the school, but it was a very small bunch. It was a very small group. I don't know what it looks like demographically now because I haven't been back to that school since 2017. So it's been about 2 years, almost 2 years, because I went for my homecoming. But yeah, this doesn't surprise me that it's an increase there. And of course, HBCUs like PWIs have to meet a quota of non-black students that go there, but it seems like their quota is increasing. At this point, they'll just take anybody in as long as they are paying that money and they can keep the doors open. Meanwhile, PWIs, you don't see them going through that. They always going to have a revolving door of white people coming in, except for that one year at Harvard. Was it Harvard where their freshman class was majority non-white? Man, them white people was upset about that. But anyway, y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. I will talk to you in the next one.